Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I am sharing some more spring and Easter DIYs that are super cute and super easy to do. For this first project, I'm using this fondant mat that I got from Amazon. It has this really pretty lace flowery detail. So I'm going to be using some of my air dry clay and I'm going to roll this out and use this for a 5x7 frame. I kind of wanted to make this look like embroidered paper. So I'm rolling this out really thin over my fondant mat. And then I am taking a piece of paper that is 5x7 and I'm gonna very gently cut this down to size. Now, like I said, I did roll this out pretty thin, so you wanna be very careful when you're pulling this up, but look how beautiful that detail is. I'm gonna lay that aside to dry overnight, and while I'm waiting, I am gonna go ahead and work on this frame. I picked up just a generic wood frame from my local thrift store, and of course, I did want to embellish it a little bit, so I just used some Amazon molds that I got and made some little corner pieces just using hot glue. Now, once I had those corner pieces glued down, again, just using hot glue to do that, I took this outside and spray painted it with some Rust-Oleum metallic gold spray paint, but I wanted to dull that down a little bit, so just using some of my European gold rub and buff, I went over the entire frame to dull that down. The next day, once the clay was dry, I was able to just pop this back into my frame, and the backing fit over it quite nicely, so I was able to just reuse that as well. To decorate this frame, I'm actually going to be using these little cross stitch frames. I got these at my thrift store, but you can find these in any craft store, even Walmart has them. And I'm also going to be using these beautiful butterfly stamps that I got from Amazon, and I'm just picking out 3 of these that I like, and I'm going to stamp these down onto a scrap piece of drop cloth. And as always, if I am able to link what I am using, it will be linked in the description box below. So I will have these, and I also have some drop cloth linked on there as well. So once I had the stamps finished, I just used a pencil and traced around the frame so I could cut these out. Now, I also wanted my small frame to match my larger frame, so I'm just going back in with a little bit of that European gold rub and buff and going over this small frame. On the inside of this small frame, there's a little lip, so I'm just using some hot glue and doing a bead of hot glue all the way around this frame. And then I was able to just press this down into the frame. I just used a small pair of scissors to trim off any excess that was sticking out. To hang the smaller frame from the larger one, I'm using these little eye hooks that I got from Amazon, and I did end up having to snip the top of that smaller frame so that I could get this through the little hole, but it's not even noticeable. For this next project, I'm using 2 little pieces of 2x4 scrap wood and some of Dollar Tree's little wood biscuits. Now, I did end up cutting the bottoms of these kind of flat and at an angle so that I could use these for the little bunny ears for these bunnies. And it was super simple. I just used my miter box saw and it took just a few minutes. The first thing I wanted to do was use a wet cloth and some of my antiquing wax to go over both of the pieces of these 2x4s because I just didn't really like the yellowish wood color, and I knew I wanted to dry brush white over top of these, so I didn't want that yellowish color to show through. And then I also dry brushed some more white paint over those little wood biscuits. And once everything was dry, I was able to just use some Dollar Tree wood glue to attach the little ears kind of in the center of the top of these wood pieces. Now, I ended up not adding eyes to my bunnies, but I did want to do a nose and some whiskers. So for the noses, I'm just using these little drawer handles. I got these at Home Depot probably a while back for maybe 50 cents each, but I didn't like the color, so I am going in with some of my European Gold Rub and Buff and going over those. And then to make the whiskers, I'm just using some black floral wire from Dollar Tree, and I cut down 6 little pieces of those, and I kind of just twisted them together, then hot glued those down, and I was able to just press the little handle noses right into that. Now, like I said before, I didn't add any eyes to my bunnies, but at this point, you could definitely do that if you wanted to. But the final touch I did for these was just adding in some little inner ear pieces with some of that gold rub and buff to match the noses. For this next project, I really loved these mossy concrete rabbits that I saw at Pottery Barn. So I picked up 2 of these little ceramic bunnies from my thrift store, and I thought I could definitely turn these into crumbly concrete mossy bunnies. So although these bunnies did have a little bit of texture, like fur texture, I wanted to just give them more texture and depth. So I'm adding on some Dollar Tree spackling, covering both of these completely. Now I made sure that the spackling was completely dry, and then I'm going in with some elephant gray from Apple Barrel, and I'm just kind of patting this all over these bunnies. And once that first coat was dry, I'm going to go back in, mix some of my white chalk paint with that elephant gray to make a lighter gray color, and I'm going to pat this over both of these bunnies kind of in random places. Now while that's still wet, I'm going to take a damp paper towel with some of my white chalk paint, and I'm going to pat this all over the bunnies and kind of blend in all of the colors. So you're really just layering different colors of paint and blending those in. You can see here I'm also using my paintbrush that still had a little bit of paint on it just to feather in all of those colors so that they blend nicely together. And this is all just going to help achieve that really aged, crumbly cement look that I'm going for. And the final step to really kick up this aged look is I'm going in with a little bit of my Moss Waverly chalk paint, and I'm going to dab this along the bottom and anywhere that I think it would get natural moisture or aging, that's where I'm going to put this. And then to add just a little more aging, I'm going to take some of my antiquing wax and just very lightly brush over some of the places where I put the moss and just blend that in with my finger. For this final project, I'm just using some of these eggs that I got from Dollar General. These were, I think, $2. They are not wood, but they are a thick plastic and they don't open. Now, as you can see here, 5 of these have holes in them, and that is because I went ahead and drilled holes in the tops and the bottoms of these so that I can use these really thin dowel rods that I got from Dollar Tree. And since I am making candlesticks with these little dowel rods are just going to help this be more sturdy. And I also found it helpful to go ahead and put these on the dowel rods while I was painting them. For the paint, I am just mixing up a little bit of my white chalk paint with some of my Apple Barrel antique white just to make these a kind of off-white color. Now I set those aside to dry, and I'm going to start working on the bases. I picked up these rosette pieces from my thrift store. They were like $1 for both of these. You can use any wood piece that you want for the base of this, but since I already had these, I figured I would just go ahead and use these. So I am painting those the same color. Now, if you remember a few videos back, I used candlesticks and cut the tops off of those to make 2 bookends. And of course, I held on to these and figured I could just go ahead and use these pieces that I already have to make the tops of these candle holders. But again, you can use anything you want for the top. You could even make these into pillar candle holders by using 2 more wood pieces on the top. Now, I also ended up painting the top of those the same colors that I used on the bottom and the eggs, but I didn't really like how the rounded shape on the bottom was against the eggs, so I decided to add in some of these half beads to the bottom and then went in and painted those the same color. And as you can see here a little bit, I did go ahead and drill in the top pieces and the bottom pieces so that I could just use some wood glue to put my little dowels down in there and make them really stable. And I did end up cutting those dowel rods down. I left about maybe a 1/2 inch at the top and the bottom, and then made sure that I drilled far enough down in the bottom and into the top so that the top and the bottom of that dowel would fit in there nice and snug. And once the wood glue was all dry, I went back in to add some final touches. I'm just using a stenciling brush and some of my antiquing wax to make those eggs look speckled, and then just adding a little bit of distressing. And that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed these spring and Easter DIYs. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.